Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Everybody, please have a seat. Thank you. It is wonderful to be here, and I always look forward to an opportunity to speak to some of our top businesses across the country who are hiring people, investing in America, making the economy run. And many of you I've had a chance to interact with before. As you know, oftentimes when I do something like this, I want to spend more time answering questions and having a conversation than giving any formal remarks. Let me just provide a little bit of an introduction. Obviously, over the last couple of months, most of the oxygen in this town has been consumed with two things. One, the government shutdown and the possibility of default that was ultimately resolved. And the second has been the rollout of the Affordable Care Act and the fact that my website's not working the way it's supposed to. And it's entirely legitimate that those have been issues of great concern. The impact of the shutdown and the threat of default, I think, not only did some significant damage to the economy at a time when we didn't need self-inflicted wounds, but it also spoke to some larger problems we've seen here in Washington and the sense of dysfunction and the seeming incapacity of both parties in Congress to work together to advance an agenda that's going to help us grow. With respect to the Affordable Care Act, I think people are legitimately concerned because we have a major problem with health care in this country. 41 million people without health insurance, a lot of people underinsured. And once again, how we fix a health care system that's been broken for too many people for too long, I think ends up speaking to how much confidence we have in government and whether we still have the capacity collectively to bring about changes that are going to be good for our economy, good for our businesses, good for the American people. I do want to say, though, that beyond the headlines, we have made real progress in the economy, and sometimes that hasn't gotten enough attention. Some of the tough decisions that we made early on have paid off, decisions that helped us not only recover from a crisis, but begin to lay a stronger foundation for future growth. We refocused on manufacturing and exports, and today our businesses sell more goods and services made in America than ever before around the world. After a decade of shedding jobs, our manufacturing sector has now added about 500,000 new jobs, and it's led by an American auto industry that has come roaring back after decades of decline. We decided to reverse our dependence on foreign oil, and today we generate more renewable energy than ever before and more natural gas than anybody in the world. And for the first time in nearly 20 years, America now produces more of our own oil than we buy from other countries. When I took office, we invested a fraction of what other countries did in wireless infrastructure, and today it's up nearly 50%, helping companies unleash jobs, innovation, and a booming app economy that's created more than 500,000 jobs. When I took office, only 5% of the world's smartphones ran on American operating systems. Today, more than 80% do. And it's not just in the high-tech economy that we're seeing progress. For example, American farmers are on pace to have one of their best years in decades, and they have consistently been able to export more, make more profits, and help restore rural economies than when we came into office. And yes, we decided to take on a broken healthcare system. And even though the rollout of the new healthcare marketplace has been rough, to say the least, about 500,000 Americans are now poised to gain healthcare coverage beginning January 1st. That's after only a month of sign-up. We also have seen healthcare costs growing at the slowest rate in 50 years. Employer-based health costs are growing at about 1/3 of the rate of a decade ago, and that has an impact on your bottom line. And after years of trillion-dollar deficits, we reined in spending, wound down 2 wars, and began to change a tax code that I believed was too skewed towards the wealthiest among us at the expense of the middle class. And since office, since I took office, we have now cut our deficits by more than half. Add it all up, and businesses like yours have created 7.8 million new jobs over the past 44 months. We've gone farther and recovered faster than most other advanced nations. And so, in a lot of ways, America is poised for a breakout. We are in a good position to compete around the world in the 21st century. The question is, are we going to realize that potential? And that means that we've still got some more work to do. Our stock markets and corporate profits are soaring, but we've got to make sure that this remains a country where everyone who works hard can get ahead. And that means we've still got to address long-term unemployment. We still have to address stagnant wages and stagnant incomes. And frankly, we've got to stop governing by crisis here in this town, because if it weren't for Washington's dysfunction, I think all of us agree we'd be a lot further along. The shutdown and the threat of default harmed our jobs market. It cost our economy about $5 billion, and economists predict it will slow our GDP growth this quarter. And it didn't need to happen. It was self-inflicted. We should not be injuring ourselves every few months. We should be investing in ourselves. And in a sensible world, that starts with a budget that cuts what we don't need, closes wasteful loopholes, and helps us afford to invest in the things that we know will help businesses like yours and the economy as a whole: education, infrastructure, basic research and development. We would have a grand bargain for middle-class jobs that combines tax reform with a financing mechanism that lets us create jobs, rebuilding infrastructure that your businesses depend on, but we haven't gotten as much take-up from the other side as we'd like to see so far. We have the opportunity for bipartisan authority to negotiate the best trade deals possible so businesses and workers can take advantage of new markets that are opening up around the world. We haven't seen the kind of take-up from the other side that we'd like to see so far. We've got the opportunity to fix a broken immigration system that strengthens our economy and our national security. The good news here is the Senate has already passed a bipartisan bill that economists say would grow our economy by $1.4 trillion and shrink our deficits by nearly $1 trillion over the next 2 decades. You wouldn't turn down a deal that good, and Congress shouldn't either. So I'm hoping that Speaker Boehner and the House of Representatives can still work with us to get that done. And we need to be going all out to prepare our kids and our workers for the demands of a 21st century economy. I've proposed giving every child an early start at success by making high-quality preschool available to every 4-year-old in America. We know that you get more bang for the buck when it comes to early childhood education than just about anything else. And you've got great examples around the country, oftentimes in red states, that are doing just that. We need to make that same investment. We're working to bring down the costs of a college degree so more young people can get a higher education. And one thing that I'm very excited about, and this has been a good example of a public-private partnership, is the idea of redesigning our high schools to make sure that more young people get hands-on training and develop the skills that they need, particularly in math, science, and engineering, that businesses are looking for. And in fact, today we're announcing a competitive grant program that will encourage more high schools to partner with colleges and local businesses to better prepare our kids for college or a career. And in December, I'll be bringing together college presidents and other leaders to figure out ways to help more low-income students attend and succeed in college. So, just to sum up, my basic message is this. We know what the challenges are. We know what the solutions are. Some of them are tough, but what's holding us back is not a lack of good policy ideas, or even what used to be considered good bipartisan policy ideas. We just have to break through the stubborn cycle of crisis politics and start working together. More obstruction, more brinksmanship won't help anybody. It doesn't help folks politically. My understanding is nobody in this town is doing particularly well at the moment when it comes to the opinions of the American people. But it certainly doesn't help anybody economically. On many of the issues, I think you and I would agree, and I want you to know that I'm rooting for your success. And I look forward to making sure that we are able, in the remaining 3 years that I'm president, to work together to not only improve the business climate, but also improve the prospects for Americans all across the country who have been treading water, feel like they're losing ground, are anxious about the future and their children's futures, but I think are still hopeful and still possess that fundamental American optimism. If they see leadership working across the board on their behalf, then I'm confident that we can make enormous progress. So, with that, why don't we get Jerry up here, and I'll start answering his questions. I hope he had some input. If he starts asking me about what happened to the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm not sure I'll have a good answer for that one.